Really excited to get into this today. So this has been one of my favorite IMSs for sure, and counting. So a quick intro. Today we're joined by a real powerhouse. She is the creative engine behind one of the most successful electronic acts of all time, behind some of the most iconic tunes in dance music history, a key member of
Getting shy now.
Don't Get Shy, formed in 1995 with Rollo, Jamie Cato, and the late legendary Maxi Jazz. This year marks 30 years since their debut album, Reverence, dropped. I was listening to that on the plane here, banging it out, absolutely loving it and getting ready, obviously featuring the iconic Insomnia. Having released 8 studio albums, prominent sets all over the world, Glastonbury, obviously playing at Dolt Villa this evening. And last year they entered into a new chapter with the double album Champion Sound, proving that Faithless is not just about celebrating the past, but also defining the future. And Sister Bliss, a world-class DJ, film composer, producer, musician, trailblazer for women. Returning to the IMS stage, your first keynote in 17 years, apparently.
Yeah, first ever.
Yeah, first ever. It's about time actually that they got you on, I reckon. So let's make some noise. Let's get into it for Sister Bliss. I mean, there's so much more I could have said there, but
I'm really just Nate's mum.
and Nate's mum is.
Yeah.
Is he here?
No, he's not. He did say, "Can I please come?" I said, "No. I need to."
He's what, 19?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, busy in a mind trip. Does he come to your gigs then? Because he's what, 19?
Yeah, he does. He does. He likes to be on the guest list. And actually, for the first time this year, we're headlining Boomtown, which is a young person's festival. And literally every single one of his mates rang up and was like, "Oh, can your mum get me on the guest list?"
And you said,
Because usually, it's like, "Oh, those older people." And I said, "No, all my friends want to come."
fair enough, you're putting the
Yeah.
ground rules in. I respect it. So this is your first time talking at IMS. Obviously, you've been in Ibiza.
Yeah, actually, years
Hundred
ago, I did do a panel about the art of the remix, which was a lot of fun, but this is in a different space, and
Okay.
it's wonderful to have it here. It's a great addition to the scene, being at the Mondrian,
Yeah,
and enjoying it.
what's your relationship with Ibiza? What are kind of your staples? Do you have a little routine when you get here where you like to stay, or?
I have to say, most of my visits recently have been to certain clubs since the band's been back on the road again. I've had less time for DJing,
Yep.
but Pikes is a favourite. I know lots of you went last night. It's a home from home. I was there in the 90s. I love how Andy and Dawn, when they were together, resurrected it, and it became the place for artists to stay, and had that sort of wonderful wonkiness to it where time kind of stands still. And I think that's what happens in Ibiza. Hours get lost, plans get mislaid, and you're suddenly on Ibiza time, and you kind of think, why don't we live like this all the time? Which is kind of why I do what I do, and I do so much of it because I don't want to do a proper job.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, the fact that you've been doing this 30 years and you're still so active and inspired and innovating, I think it has to be the best job in the world, right?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely comes with pressures, and it comes with no guarantees, and there are no safety nets. There was no maternity pay. There's no sick leave. This is not a world for the faint-hearted. It's a community. There is much love. There is much passion. And it was a real DIY culture when we started. There wasn't this career trajectory. There were no IMSs. You had Medem at Cannes, which was like a record fair where people wanted to license various tracks that were blowing up in Europe or the UK. So there was business festivals, but IMS didn't exist. There wasn't a kind of solid network in the way that there is now, and a kind of almost defined path to becoming someone in electronic music. We all had different trajectories, whether people came on from the sound system culture, whether you're running your own like cheeky parties in the woods or warehouses in East London, or you wanted to make music. Like I fell into making music because I met a guy at a record stall in Camden Town, and he sold me an Atari computer for 200 quid, and I figured out how to work it and started making demos in my mum's bedroom. I mean, it was so DIY, and someone I used to go raving with, who's now a kind of cornerstone of rave culture, Mr. John Truelove, some of you might know, lives here now. He's on the board at PRS, but he gave me my first opportunity to go in the studio and make a record. I came in with a cassette, which was in mono. It was so rubbish. I didn't even know how to work out how to get it in stereo. And I'd made all these tunes in my mum's bedroom. And that was the beginning of being given a chance and being a music and rave obsessive. It just became my life. It fed something deep in me. It gave me a family. It gave me a community. And I really enjoyed what Hospital Records on the panel, they were saying. This is not something you just dip your toe in. You can live and breathe it. But of course, back in the day, we didn't know that. So it was all like happy accidents. And being very excited about new music and technology, for me, that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as someone, I think this is like my 6th IMS, but in my career I've probably been DJing like over 10 years now, and like I completely know what you mean. Like, the reason I do this is the connection with people, that family you have, like people you met on the dance floor when you were 18, like the fact that you're still working with them now, collaborating with them now.
Or going out with them,
Going
and
out.
raving, still raving with my old Royales, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
'Cause I like to think I'm still doing it for the over 50s here, and that you don't have to just pack up your bags
Hell
when
no.
you hit a certain age, especially as a woman, because as we know, some of the gatekeepers, the leader of the scene, leaders, plural, are sometimes into their 60s, and they haven't lost their passion, they haven't lost their fervour for it. And I hope I can keep on doing this as long as people want me to do it, and that I still feel creatively fired up. And it is collaborative, like all of this sort of success you point to. It's in conjunction with other people. When it was very underground, you couldn't find dance music on the radio. I found my music through pirate radio and raves, Solaris, nightclub on a Sunday afternoon, some legendary nights, in 88, 89. And I feel like I was there when house music was born, and it was mixed up with like Madonna and Prince. It wasn't a standalone genre. Um, but it felt like it had landed from the future. It had come in a spacecraft.
I like that.
What is this music?
Landed from
Did
the
something
future.
to my insides. The sound of the 909 and the 303 and the 808. There's some alchemy and magic in that I've been chasing ever since.
Oh, I
What a
love that.
sado.
No, I mean, that's why we're all here, is it not? Like the way.
Chasing the perfect beat.
Yes, I think.
And the higher oneness, because we wrote music about that. God is a DJ, we come one was alluding to something where your body almost leaves itself and becomes one with everybody. There is the universal consciousness, and I love that. That feeling. I genuinely had it. And when we met Maxi, he was such an amazing poet and lyricist and had a philosophic outlook. We asked him to put that into lyrics, and it chimed with his own Buddhist faith. And some amazing, now considered anthems came out of that very fertile period. But I'm equally as proud of a record we made called Mass Destruction, which was calling out misinformation, greed, racism, and the fact that politics and dance music could actually be happy bedfellows, and it wasn't all happy clappy love on the dance floor. I mean, when we made Mass Destruction, it was a kind of commentary on the Iraq War. And for better or worse, Faithless has become a kind of touchstone for, I suppose, conscious lyrics, spoken word, poetry, and a marriage with electronic music. So I guess even after Maxi's passing, we seek to honour him and work with people in that field. And if you like, pass the baton to that next generation. Some great artists like Sully Breaks, we've worked on the last couple of albums. I love his flow. I love the content of what he's saying. He's such a thoughtful young man. And I found him on YouTube. So there is modern ways of finding people to collaborate with and create new magic.
It's interesting. I think the fact that you guys were really, you talk about the state of affairs of the world and the politics, and through the medium of Maxi. But also, a lot of dance music is also, it can just be like club bangers.
Of course, and we want to lose ourselves and not think about the seriousness and heaviness and war and disease and famine and just daily news feed of doom. There has to be hope. But I always felt Maxi in his delivery and thoughtfulness and choice of words would draw attention to the human condition, but also offer something hopeful. So again, I feel Faithless is a conduit for that in other artists that we've worked with. That you can do something that isn't cringy and is about the state of the world, because to dance and to gather collectively is actually political. And it certainly was when we started, because there was the Criminal Justice Act that told us we shouldn't gather together and dance. It was illegal. And actually, we've been doing that since the beginning of time, round a fire, when we were caveman.
Drums.
All on ayahuasca or whatever the equivalent was back then.
Not much has changed, hey?
Exactly. So I feel this is a long human tradition to want to dance together to a tribal beat. And outside life is part of the human experience, and the dance floor is someone we can come together to forget, to have communion. If we're outsiders, if we're in a minority group, the dance floor should be a safe space. And I came through on a gay scene. They welcomed me. They loved me.
So you were playing at Trades.
I was
in
playing
London.
Turnmill's Trade, legendary club, adopted by the female DJs there at the time, who took me under wing, gave me a break. People like Princess Julia, Rachel Auburn, people of a certain age will totally remember this scene.
Were you aware of
it was
that there weren't many of you being with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked up to the women who were the originators, Ulisa Loud, Nancy Noyes, hardcore DJs called Danielle and Rochelle that I don't think many people remember from back in the rave days, DJ Rap.
Yes.
But there were women that Smoking Joe especially, who's still going strong. I would just watch and think, well, if they're doing it and I'm a woman, well, maybe I can do it. So I think the visibility part of being a DJ is really important. If we see difference, we get an idea that we could become this.
Yeah.
And many years ago, we wrote a song called Muhammad Ali, because when Maxi saw Muhammad Ali, a beautiful black man, intelligent, an amazing fighter, he suddenly realised he could be something, as opposed to being pretty much racially abused on a daily basis in Croydon in the 1950s. It wasn't a pretty time, still isn't. So, and I remember saying to Max when he told me this story about Muhammad Ali made him walk down the street and puff out his chest. That was a real story. It's not just a nod to representation and all the clever stuff we say on panels. That was a real experience. My deeply loved and admired friend, colleague, musical collaborator, he had as a real young man feeling threatened on the streets of London, his own city. Never felt like he belonged, And I think there's something about being an outsider that's very powerful. I think you'll find a lot of people, if you dig a bit deeper in dance music, they found a community. And it's probably the same for emo or heavy metal fans. I'm not saying we're an exclusive community, but I do feel there was a great levelling where the bourgeoisie and the rebels rubbed shoulders.
Yeah.
In a way they hadn't before. Acid House was a great leveler in that way.
That's really interesting. And I think, again, my generation, we love looking back at the past and the 90s and nostalgia. And also just, I'm 31 now. So I kind of, I remember a time without iPhones, obviously, and the internet, but also since being a teenager, I've had an iPhone, and obviously I'm so aware of how much has changed in that time. But as a DJ myself and going to clubs, the way that social media and being online and content and DJ sets being streamed, and it's kind of more important about that than the audio. Well, I don't think it is, but do you know what I mean? It's such a spectacle now, and the issues, obviously there's some pros and cons to that, but the issues that's been caused, that people in the crowds don't seem to be as present. And when you're talking about this time when it was just so raw and you were just doing it, no one was thinking, oh, that'll look good on Instagram in the 90s. Do you know what I mean? How do you kind of feel about where we're at now and just how everything has exploded? It's so hyper real, hyper visual.
Yeah, that's a massive question. There are so many little ecosystems within dance music. It's not just one thing. And I understand there are people who like to film themselves being there, that they do want to be part of a bigger experience, but it's just in their kind of lifetime that all of these experiences are filmed. And then there's people who want to be in the moment, and they're very happy to go to the nights where people are now moving towards a 90s model where you put a sticker on your camera because they look at videos of us going nuts in the hacienda, when some massive tune drops, and just you almost get the sense of very, very old videos, because there's not that many of them, of how free it was because people weren't being filmed and the self-consciousness that brings. So I think there are, people divide into different camps, don't they? So I think social media, of course, as an artist, it's useful, it sustains our career. It's also a total bind. I think my life is actually quite boring. Does anyone really want to see me noodling around in the studio and making stuff that's crap until I make it good? I don't want to show the process. I want a little bit of magic. Like, I want the song to appear and it's finished and the performance to be finished. I don't want to necessarily show everyone the nuts and bolts. You don't need much else. All the rest is kind of window dressing. But I do appreciate there's also, because of the proliferation of cameras and filming, the production goes up and up and up. So you need a video wall and a this and a that and pyros and trapeze artists, and suddenly, yes, that's a fantastic experience. But actually, for the consumer, the cost is going to get passed down to them eventually. So then it becomes more and more expensive to go out and just lose yourself in music. And that's not the reason I got into it. And of course I've profited because I sell tickets to my shows and we have a production cost that's associated with it. But
there's a huge issue.
It's a spiral of more and more and more. And I kind of I have this moment where it's just everything is too much. All of it. Social media, keeping on top of just the normal life.
It is too much. We've had enough.
Wow. It's thoughts you're thinking. So I love to sort of strip it back.
And it kills creativity.
Well, it depends who you are. It's an generational thing. Some people are so clever with social media and they really make it work for them. So I can't say it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. Like everything, there's nuance.
There is, yeah. I just find we live in a world where you're doing a million things at once, which I think it's my toxic trait. I kind of enjoy that. But it's almost oh, I'm a DJ producer, but I'm spending 75% of my time making these videos so that people know I'm a DJ producer when I want to be DJing and producing. Yeah. So it's catch-22.
There's so much noise, isn't there?
Yeah.
I've had to just go and lie down in a dark room just now, just because people, conversations. And excitement, because I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to reconnect with lots of people I haven't seen for a while. And remember that I am part of a community. I'm not just going from gig to gig to gig and there's no connection apart from in that moment when I'm DJing or performing with a band. It brings me back to who I am. So I love it. But then I get overwhelmed. And I think a lot of artists find themselves in that space. In fact, that's where they're drawn to the studio and the kind of almost piece of it, because outside is just chaos.
It really is. Do you how does it feel when people come up to you and say your tunes, your music, I saw you at Glastonbury, it changed my life, my mum showed you my music, and me and my mum, for example, we love Insomnia, it's one of our songs, and
that's very cool.
And as a woman who is in mums, big up the mum. You've inspired so many people, whether it's music listeners or people like myself, to get into doing this. How does that feel? Does it take you aback a bit?
I actually said this earlier in another interview. I said, if you've done this thing and the glory and all the interviews and all the attention and the financial reward is wonderful. It's allowed me to live a pretty good life in certain ways. But if you've touched someone with your music, every time, I feel I'm not worthy, I sort of can't believe it. But, and also to reiterate, I'm treading in the footsteps of people who came before, who showed me the Smoking Joes or Left Field, that proved that an album of dance music was an amazing thing. When dance music was just one-off singles back in the day, people didn't really conceive that albums could be a thing for dance music or electronic music artists. You've got it's a bit unusual. So we must like doing that. We do. But what can I say? It's extremely touching. It makes me think, well, the difficult bits were all worth it, because it's not been an easy glide. It looks all brilliant on the outside, but we're like a sort of, I talked to Rollo about this a lot, my studio partner, and Faithless and all-round genius, but we're like these swans gliding across a lake, making it look easy, and the feet are just flapping, going, oh my God, look at our algorithms and what's the streaming doing?
Aren't we all doing that though?
There's work that goes into all of these different outlets. But when an individual says your music's touched our lives, or Maxi's lyrics got me through my divorce or my cancer, I mean, honestly, especially when he died, the outpouring of love and the real life experiences that other human beings that I do not know and may never meet, they shared that with me. I've never experienced anything like it. It's profound, it's touching, it's humbling. It's human. I think what being an artist is, you make music and you really hope that people listen to it, but the fact inside, God, what more could you ask for?
Well, that's maybe
Really, it's just
what you
look,
said.
it is for me. It is for me, and especially because Maxi's not here to enjoy that appreciation. I just want to. It's like, why? Why is he not here to know how loved he was, and that people cared about what we did in the studio? And I hope wherever he is now in the afterlife and the next realm, he knows that there is love, and that's why we do it. We love what we do, and we love people, and people love us. And God, what else is there?
Yeah.
What a thing to have done, and to carry on, and to get to carry on doing it.
Well, with Faithless now, Faithless sound system,
Yeah.
can you
that's
tell us
right.
about, how you want to celebrate, obviously, the past and still have the presence of Maxi and everything you've just spoken about, but, with a new setup and new band?
Yeah, so we've gone live again with the full band, sort of in honour of Maxi, to celebrate our life in music, to celebrate dance music. It's like a love letter to our past and what made us who we are. And Faithless Sound System, which we're performing tonight at Villa, it's only our third outing, so be
Okay.
kind.
Okay.
And in this formation, it's a kind of like elevated DJ set diffusion line of the live band, something that we can take into different places where the full live band, you might not be able to get the backline or the tech or the funding. And this is a way of us sort of spreading the message. It's also female-led. So I've got
I
the
noticed that.
percussionist and singer from the live band, Lily Gonzalez and Amelia Fox, who are just fantastic artists in their own right. And it's been a joy playing with them live in our latest incarnation of Faithless, the live band. And we record with them. They're both on the last album, Champion Sound. And so we're kind of bringing a big old Faithlessy mash-up to the main stage at Villa, which I've never played before. So it is absolutely anxiety-inducing and very exciting.
So do you still get nervous before shows? Or
Yeah, I feel sick most of the time. I'm just
Really?
constantly anxious, yeah.
after all this time, all
Yeah.
the amount of shows you've played,
Yeah,
sites.
the legs are going like the clappers.
So what do you do before you're going on stage? Do you have, how do you
Huddle. We have a big
do you,
huddle. Yes.
like a
Always.
rugby scrum?
Yes.
Do you have like a chant, like a Faithless?
We do, but I can't possibly repeat it because you'll laugh at us. Some things have to remain private. But yeah, we do. We have a little like hype
Love it.
before we go on. So yeah, that's the show tonight. It's just an hour long, and hopefully like spans decades of music, all shoehorned into a DJ set
Yeah.
plus.
Oh, honestly, I'm so excited. I really want to know this from a personal point of view. So I started producing the last couple of years, and like, I find a lot of imposter syndrome and anxiety around the art of making music. I mean, who doesn't really? It's such a weird thing. And then nowadays you put it out, being perceived is a lot. And I think as a woman as well, I feel like it's only taken me this long to get into producing, because I just didn't really see any women doing it really. Or like, you think of a studio engineer or producer, it's like always a guy. No, obviously it's not, but that was how it felt. And it felt like a very closed thing. And when I speak to some of my other friends who are women or minority genders, like I've really had some very sad experiences where people have been not even necessarily intentionally made to feel small in the studio. And like, sometimes I walk away from sessions being like, oh, I feel like I didn't say enough, or I feel like I didn't do enough, or they're going to think I'm rubbish, or the other thing, they're going to assume I've got a ghost producer because I'm a woman. Because I hear all these horrible things, and it really gets to me. And like, obviously you've been in the studio producing, playing synths, making amazing tunes for years and decades, but I don't know, what advice would you give to anyone going through that? Because that is a conversation I have a lot with a lot of people.
It's a huge struggle, isn't it? Just self-belief, our self-esteem in life generally. Um, I think there are people out there, including myself, that mentor
Yeah.
other producers and musicians. I work at Tile Yard Studios, so I do some mentoring for them and other organisations as well. I think that's really important, not to lead by example, but just to go, listen, let's just demystify all of this. What I would say is that we're in an amazing era for information. Anything you struggle with, you can look at a YouTube video. I sit there and get sort of, what can I do with Logic and why isn't this working? And I can always increase my technical knowledge. And it's get imposter syndrome, and I get it too. Absolutely. That's why I get nervous before every single show I ever do. And it's a mark that you care about what you're doing. But you will have to find your voice, and you will have to say, I believe this. I believe this is going to sound good. But I've sat there often in a room full of men when I'm making music and have to, feel like I'm being railroaded sometimes. And I have spent 30 years bickering with Rollo about what musical decision to make. Sometimes one of us wins, sometimes the other does. But it's also about serving the greater picture. What is right for the music? And also, you find your people. You'll find people to collaborate with that support you and don't denigrate you and don't ride roughshod over your ideas. Because I know that when I'm arguing in the studio, I am actually, I know it's not an ego thing. I know it is about the music and that we're hearing it differently. So that's another thing. Music is so subjective. I can think something is just great, but it's not really an objective opinion. And I could probably break it down into the elements that are great and why it works for me. But some tracks have an indefinable magic. I can't even put it into words. So it's about trusting your instincts, I guess, and working with people who facilitate that and make mistakes. The other thing is about social media is everything's like online now. Everything you do, everything that's rubbish, you kind of feel it's all being catalogued. We made lots of mistakes. We made lots of records that weren't amazing. But we used to talk about it. We said, listen, the law of averages is if you keep making music, you get better at it. It's like doing press ups. You can't not get stronger. You can't not develop. And keep being open-minded, keep collaborating, and you'll find your people and you'll bounce off each other, and there'll be this alchemy in the studio, which is what happened when Rollo and I met Maxi and were deeply intrigued by him. And we fought to make the best music for his voice and his message to reach people and how it sounded coming out of the speakers. Like, just on a really practical level, we worked out he sounded amazing over a breakdown with no beats. His delivery was very old school, and at the time British rap was not having a good time. So he was in a real old school traditional hip hop. But when you change the environment, the lyrics could sing out. If you put him over a like regular hip hop beat, it never got played, it never got touched. I know this because this was Maxi's career before the three of us got together and the alchemy happened. But find your people, I guess, is the advice.
That was amazing advice.
That's a lot of advice, isn't it? Too much.
No, I think that was perfect. I think that we agree. Great advice. Yeah. Yeah, come on. I think that fantastic.
Yeah.
That was a real pep talk as well. I feel like I
Good.
needed to hear
And
that.
don't be afraid of the fight, because the fight needs to be in service of the bigger thing, which is the best music you can possibly make, not just because you want to dominate another individual.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I have to ask, and I feel like everyone will want to know, when you're in the studio back in the day, was it in a shed studio?
That was, in a garden shed in Islington.
Garden shed in
God, it was a dump. But that's where the magic happens.
100%. You're there, the three of you, the vibes are flowing. You play. Dun, 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 dun. How did you? Yeah. Like, how did you come up with that? Where did that come from?
Oh, God, literally, Rollo said, play a riff. We got some beats up. We had a song on our first album, Reverence, called Salva Mea.
Yeah.
And this is when we met Maxi, and we found a button on the Atari computer, and it slowed the middle of the song down to a hip hop tempo, which was when we thought we've got this housey thing, a bit like Little Louis French Kiss. slows down in the middle, and then it speeds up at the end. Oh my God, we found the button that does that.
Yeah.
And Rollo said it would be really, why don't we get like a hip hop rap in the middle? And a mutual friend of ours said, I've met a Buddhist rapper from Brixton. It's called Maxi Jazz. We're doing a track together, which was actually a reggae track, not house at all. So we said, never met a Buddhist rapper before. Maxi comes down the studio and we just start talking about his Buddhism, his philosophy, his attitude to life. And Rollo starts asking him, can he put that into a lyric? And he'd never been asked to put his Buddhist faith into a lyric in that way before. He was always kind of like drafted in to do kind of throw your hands in the air, kind of sort of party hip hop vibes. And that became our first track, Salva Mea. And the tagline, the sort of, was just below my skin, I'm screaming. So it's about being in a life state of frustration and lack of self-esteem. I mean, you don't really get that in dance music, and it was kind of undanceable. So we then got back together to make an album because none of us made an album before. I goes, why don't we just make an album? Maxi's so interesting.
Why not? Yeah.
Let's make it like a mixtape for our mates. And it's got a hip hop track and a house track and a bit of ambient and a bit of folk, courtesy of Dido's Rollo's sister, who then went on to become stratospherically successful. But she just used to hang around just trying to get...
When I found that out, I was obsessed. Dido just hanging out in the studio with Faithless.
Yeah, she was on the first, she was on Salva Mea.
Yeah.
She sings on the intro. It was like a 10-minute long track. It's probably totally undanceable in its original form, but it's a very uncompromising piece of music. But we made Insomnia as a companion piece of music to Salva Mea, but that was more accessible. So Rollo called up the same keyboard sound we'd used on Salva Mea, and I just started kind of jamming. And I had a bass line in mind, and I played it was just all so quick and casual, it's almost embarrassing, because there was a record shop in Islington and they used to get like deliveries of old, secondhand records, and we wanted to go crate digging. So it's like, just do a riff, right? Here's a beat, do a riff, here's a string sound, do some strings that sound a bit epic. And it was the beginning of the track. It was just ridiculous. And actually at the time I was DJing nearly every night of the week. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. And I remember when we got Maxi back into the studio, we said, oh look, Bliss has got insomnia. We're going to call it Insomnia because she can't get no sleep. And that is literally how ridiculous it was. But you just never know when these moments happen. Yeah. And Maxi, and the irony of it was Maxi could fall asleep at the drop of a hat, like sitting up in a chair, he'd just nod off.
Wish I could do that.
And he had to recall a period when he had an abscess on his tooth, which was a deeply unpleasant moment for him, and he really couldn't sleep anyway. So isn't that mad? That's where the lyrical inspiration came from. And being skint in his flat in Brixton, where you had to put money in the electric meter. So when the light above my head went bam, was because the meat had run out. So in a sort of roundabout way, it's about his experience of being poor in South London as well. But the I can't get no sleep obviously resonated with generations of people. But it took ages for it to catch on. And it was Pete Tong, who's run IMS, who's instrumental in telling us to re-release that track. He said, I'm telling you, people are requesting this. So we put it out and it went to like number 27 in the actual charts. No radio play, nothing, just off the back of a van.
Just because people were playing.
People were like loving it. This is how club music used to grow in the underground. And then suddenly you'd see this wave when it could cross over. But crossover meant getting radio play. Yep. And we were turned down by everyone. Radio 1 said, it's not got a hook, it's not got a chorus, piss off. And little did they know.
On behalf of Radio 1, we apologise.
Thanks.
30 years on.
I blame you. No, I don't, because you weren't born.
I was born in 95 when the tune came.
So,
wasn't me.
It wasn't you. But, it was a different era. Then the whole guard changed at Radio 1, and they realised they had to wake up to the dance revolution that was happening in the UK. If they ignored this music, they would say, on a global scale, and that sounds like ignoring something that is igniting change on a global scale, on a global scale, and that sounds like total hyperbole, but it's not. It's not an exaggeration that dance music has spread its tentacles, obviously from the gay discos of New York and Chicago, when it was such a niche thing and ghettoized, to becoming this It's music you hear everywhere on, your bleach cleaner for the bathroom advert. I mean, it's club music has transcended all possible barriers.
Yeah.
When it was so niche, I can't even begin to explain. Even down to the clothes we wore. I would walk down the street, I'd see a guy in a poncho, and I'd know. And a little hat. There was a dress code. He's discovered acid house.
Man in a poncho.
It
Been
was
to a rave.
poncho wearers, I see you.
Yeah. Any poncho ravers and wearers in the house?
There certainly are.
Yeah.
I see you.
That is incredible.
So yeah, we were rejected, and Tongi pushed us.
Yeah.
You've got to re-release this track. You've got to do it. We were on a totally independent record label, not a label funded by a major. And our canny boss at the record label, it had built up in Ibiza, because you asked me about how important is Ibiza in our genesis as a band, and our growth. Ibiza was pivotal in it. Held back the release unstoppable through the Ibizan summer. So many DJs were playing it. Held back the release till November on the same day as the Spice Girls. So the footfall into record shops doubled, because you had to buy actual product. There was no streaming. They wanted the Macarena of the summer, which was Insomnia. A deeper, darker Macarena. For better or worse, that is what that song sort of was. And it was also Berlin Love Parade. You have to realise Ibiza's massively international. It's not just Brits abroad. Huge German crowd, huge Dutch contingent, Belgian. This is a very international island. And incredibly, our record blew up all over Europe, partly because of exposure during the summer, partly because we were on independent records labels who were passionate about Faithless. They licensed our little album, and our little tracks to their bigger, more powerful labels.
I mean, that is just incredible.
Yeah, accidents happen. And we only did a live gig because we were selling so few records. And the first gig was at the Jazz Cafe, and then it became a hot ticket. As the records started to gather heat on the underground.
Yeah.
And so that was a big moment. Anyone that was ever there at the Jazz Cafe, which only held 400 people. And there was 10 of us in the band at the time, because it was like, how do you do this studio project and make it live? It was insane. We didn't even fit on the stage. I mean, God, what a mess. We had no management. It was just, we were stoned all the time. I mean,
God.
The fact that I'm even sitting here talking now is a miracle, because we were absolutely chaotic. So back to that garden shed, my memory is of Rollo obsessively drank Lucozade, and we all smoked shitloads at the time, and it was full of fag butts.
Oh my God.
It's like it was a dirty hole. So, from inauspicious beginnings.
Yes, always. And we've literally got 4.5 minutes left.
Okay.
I mean, weddings.
Or is that just
this?
Do you want to throw it open to the audience?
Yeah,
Want to
to be
ask questions? Or is that just a bit corporate?
No, we can.
Throw it open to the floor.
Does anyone have a question for Sister Bliss? Don't be shy. If not, I'll keep going with mine. But honestly,
She's doing an amazing job. Big up, Jags.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Totally.
I'm loving it.
Go on, carry on.
Okay.
You're all too shy. Come on, I'm so
Oh, yeah.
shy.
I think
I
nice.
don't even do the chat bit. I have to do it since Maxi's not here, but God, it's cringy, isn't it? Yes.
Hi.
Lovely earring lady.
Thank you. First of all, I was looking for a female inspiration, and I'm not. No offense to all the other female DJs you included. You're so cool, but for me, having you so close here, and it's just so inspiring. I was like crying when you were starting to talk about your experiences. So yeah, from my side, and I hope for other female here DJs, what would your other advice be, in addition to finding your people? What would you leave us with, like, to leaving this conference in order to
Okay.
make it, but not for fame, more for, like, having it as a live journey? Thank you.
I think you have to have passion. I think it's too harsh. I wouldn't want to start now where every other person is a DJ or a producer. There's a great democratization in music where you can make music in your bedroom on a laptop. It's loaded with GarageBand. You don't even have to buy Logic. So you can get studio quality recording in your bedroom. Back in the day, you had to pay thousands, you had to pay engineers, you had to learn how to do it yourself. So then you had more of a budget, to pay your studio rent. It's a really hard question. I think you just if you are into music and you love it, just keep at it. Keep at it, because there's something about tenacity. I know people that are way more talented than me, really talented, and they burn bright and they disappear. But what the quality I know I've got is I'm a Capricorn, right? And I just plod along relentlessly. I drive everyone mad, like in the studio and like in my management. I'm just plod, plod, plod with relentless questions. Question everything. Go outside the box. Collaborate. I mean, Find Your People really is about collaborating. It's so hard to do all of this alone. And I would say, like I say, all my success is connected to others, not least the people that came to the shows, bought the music, bought the tickets. I mean, there has to be a family that supports you. No person is an island, really.
Love that. Thank you. We've got time for another one at the back.
Hi, Arla. Jason here. How you doing? Nice to see you.
Hi.
Bringing it bang up to date, in record label world, interpolations are a big thing this year. BB Rex has obviously done her version with Insomnia. How did that come about, and what was the process, and what are your thoughts on, sort of reinterpreting it in that way?
Yeah, I feel we could be stuck in a spin cycle of endless, recycled 90s hits, because the kind of fervour for finding music is still there. But the visibility of it, it's so hard to get a new record away and create a hit, because there's 250,000 tracks coming every day. So it's the easy option to sample something that was a hit in the 90s and stick a new vocal on it. That being said, it's a creative energy that can be exciting, like Pink Pantheress. I watched her Coachella set. She just put Dark and Long Underworld on, a track that influenced me personally deeply, a band that influenced me, and she's interpolating it for a new generation that would have no clue who Underworld or Faithless are and their importance in the wider scheme of things. So I kind of feel if there's a fresh take on it, then let's see what happens. Also, I'm happy to receive the royalties for not doing any work a second time around, But I have to say, many artists sample Insomnia, and we turned down 99.9% of them. She was the 1% that got through, and partly because the lyrics almost referred to Maxi, and she was quite intelligent in what she did, partly because she's got 43 million streams. This is a strategy. We're talking military strategy in the dance music industry. For us to survive and make a living from the music that we love, sometimes we have to go with a commercial decision that kind of it has to sit right, which is why we say no a lot of the time. But in our creative world, we actually worked with BB and wrote a song with her, and we'd never done an out and out pop star collaboration like that. We've worked with the great and the good, from Dido to Robert Smith, from The Cure to Cat Power. I mean, great collaborators over the years. Jazzy B on our last album, and BB Rex is on our album writing a new song. So the deal was, if we were ever going to give her a sniff of writing her new music over Insomnia, it's because she loved Faithless, she honoured it. She's of Albanian heritage. We were massive in Eastern Europe, and her dad loved our music, and she loved it as a kid. So she came to us with a very different proposition, and the melody was good. It's catchy as hell. It's catchy like herpes, isn't it? But part of me is like, is this the right decision? Is this the right decision? Because as an elder of the scene, you feel you have to make these decisions very wisely, because we've lasted this long because we've said no to things that feel crass and cheapen what we've done as a band. That's extremely important to us, and your reputation can be over like that.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Great question. We are at time, unfortunately. I feel like we could go on all night. But we'll let you go because you've got to get to Dolt Villa actually. But please, can we make some noise for Sister Bliss
And Jaguar!
Thank you. Thank you so much.